I'm currently doing some research into the lives of boys and men,
Mm.
and especially boys, like they're treated that they have a smaller emotional bandwidth than girls when like scientifically that's just false. And
Right.
so these boys will grow up thinking that they don't have this emotional reservoir, or they're not allowed to be more expressive. And then you go through life, and then you're punished as a man later on because either you're not manly enough, or you don't have the emotions that that were stolen from you when you were a boy. So it's amazing that like you're giving parents more of these resources. What was your, I guess, what was your first book that your idea that you came up with?
The first story was just a poem that needed some pictures. So again, I didn't yet know they were going to become a thing.
Okay.
I lived in Scotland at the time, and I was out in the hill with a journal, and I wrote a poem, which I did quite a lot of. And I thought, wow, it needs some pictures. It's this little story called A Little Light. And uh, uh, the in this story, our lead character is this little boy. Of course, it was all about me. I didn't really know that yet. Once upon a time, there was a little light who intended to shine a rainbow so bright. He had a little body. It started to grow. He learned all the things he needed to know. And some of them were wrong and blocked up his flow. So we're right on the subject. It was like there I was. I'd been learning all of these little rules of what it was to be a boy or a man in South Africa, and certainly, having emotions wasn't part of that. And
Right.
the rules in quotation said, no, 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 big boys don't cry. Um, if
Don't
you
be like a
don't
girl.
play if you don't play rugby, and if you don't learn how to join the military cadets, then you're a sissy. Is kind of what it was. That wasn't the atmosphere there. And here I was the I didn't have the language yet to say I was a sensitive kid. I was a sensitive kid. I didn't have the language yet to know that I was a little dysregulated by my ADHD, which nobody ever discussed in that era or time and space. And
Right.
uh, and this little story went on to be something I just thought I'd just make it. And I was terrified to share it. That was one of the interesting things. I instructed my friend very sternly, who was doing the illustrations, you can't tell anybody about it. And part of that was a protective mechanism, because I simply knew I wasn't ready for the world's feedback. This was a
Right.
big, brave, creative step for me to to have a creative impulse or an idea come up in me, and for me to stick to it and stick to it and stick to it. It took some time. I was making £10 an hour, and she charged £10 an hour. So, it wasn't like a financially flush thing. She had never made a book. I'd never made a book. We worked it out together. And, and then the book sat quietly, and I had this deep, quiet, brooding satisfaction about having made it. And it took a long time before I was ready for feedback from other people, for them to say whether or not they liked it. And later I realized that actually this is important. Like sometimes, particularly if we've grown up with a lot of hostility in our personal environment around feedback around who we are, if what we created wasn't well received, then just don't not create it. Just create it and don't share it,
Right.
and so that you get the experience of having done what's really the first step of a very profound healing journey, in putting your heart and your soul and your spirit into an idea that's yours, and then following it through. I think that's very important for our self expression.